Terrascan, France, 1956. A young boy named Jack arrives at a church to meet with Father Noir for their daily chores. As Jack goes to the lower level of the church, he hears a noise before a glass breaks violently. He gets Noir, and they walk toward the altar where Noir is suddenly flung up into the air and set on fire. Jack flees the scene before the spirit of Valak descends. In Italy, Sister Irene is now part of a new coven after her last experience with Valak. She has befriended a younger nun, Sister Deborah, who has a habit of going against the rules of the elders. Irene hears one of the other nuns tell the younger sisters about her experience with Valak, though the elder nun never mentions Irene by name. Elsewhere in France, Maurice, Frenchie, works at a boarding school. He has a friendship with the schoolteacher, Kate, as well as a good relationship with Kate's daughter, Sophie. Sophie gets picked on by the other girls at the school, and Maurice frequently steps in to defend her. The school is run by the strict Madame Laurent, described as a hard woman who also mourns the death of her son Cedric. In a nearby town, a child making deliveries ends up alone and is stalked by a demonic presence. Valak appears and holds the child up by the neck before snapping it. Irene has a dream that she is following Maurice down an alley, where he appears demonic and possessed, calling to her for help. Afterwards, Irene is summoned to meet with Cardinal Conroy and other church elders. She is told about the death of Father Noir, along with several other church officials have been found dead under mysterious and horrifying circumstances. Irene realizes Valak has returned, but when she is asked to investigate, she initially refuses. When she asks about Father Burke, Irene is told that he has passed away from cholera. Irene decides to go and is accompanied by Deborah, who explains her own agenda for wanting to help. At the school, Sophie is approached by the mean girls from before, who appear apologetic and invite her to play a game. They bring her up to a closed-off chapel in the school, where they challenge her to look at the window with a mosaic of a goat, saying that if Sophie looks away, the devil will come for her. The sun shines through the mosaic and makes the goat's eyes appear red. The girls lock Sophie in there as she tries to get out, and she briefly sees a vision of Valak. Maurice opens the door and lets her out before scolding the other girls and leaving Sophie with Kate. Irene and Deborah arrive in Terrascan. Irene finds Jack and tries to ask him about what he saw when Noir was killed, as he simply took a rosary off him because he was scared. Jack then disappears into a crowd with other boys playing in the streets. The nuns then go to the church and speak to a member that suggests Valak has returned after marking Maurice during his attempt to rescue Irene. The nuns continue their investigation by traveling to Avignon and visiting the Palais des Papes, where they speak to a librarian about Valak. Irene and Deborah learn that Valak is after an artifact referred to as the Eyes, for they belong to Saint Lucy, the martyr who would not die after she was set on fire. The librarian believes that the victims were descendants of Lucy, and the Eyes were last seen in a monastery which is now the boarding school. During a night on the streets, Irene passes by a newsstand where the magazines and newspapers all flip their pages by themselves to create an image resembling Valak. As Irene approaches it, the lights flicker on and off until Valak appears and attacks her, causing her to lose consciousness. Deborah finds Irene and gets her medical help. After she wakes up, Irene privately talks to Deborah about her own mother, sharing the little memories she had with her before she died. Back at the school, Sophie begins to notice strange things happening with Maurice, and he also feels the demonic presence surrounding him. Meanwhile, Madame Laurent is by herself in the chapel to investigate after learning Sophie was there and claimed to have seen something. She sees what appears to be Cedric running around, calling out to her. Valak lures her into a trap and kills her. Irene and Deborah go to the school where they locate the Eyes. Valak begins to wreak havoc with the possessed Frenchie, as well as summoning a demon goat to attack the girls. Deborah and Kate end up in the care of the larger group of girls while Irene protects Sophie. The goat chases after the girls and takes the form of a dead Madame Laurent to terrorize them. After attempting to seal the goat off, it impales one of the mean girls through her shoulder before Deborah tries to help her. In the ensuing chaos, the bell tower of the school collapses, but none of the girls are hurt. Irene comes across Maurice, whose possession has now gone far enough for Valak to try and take over. Irene tries to use the Eyes to exorcise Maurice, with Deborah arriving to help Irene. It appears to start killing Maurice, and he stops moving. Irene starts to mourn her friend, but he springs back to life with Valak using him to grab the Eyes and emerge in his true demon nun form. The demon starts to try and set Irene on fire, but it turns out she is a descendant of Saint Lucy and her fire goes out. With help from Deborah, they pray hard enough to save Maurice and also cause the wine in the room to turn into the blood of Christ. The barrels explode and drench Valak, sending the demon back to hell. Maurice recovers and reunites with Kate and Sophie, while Irene is happy to see her friend again. As is Maurice, she looks at him with worry in her eyes. During the credits, Ed and Lorraine Warren receive a call from Father Gordon about one of Valak's hauntings.